To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados de las
This here's
puertas.
a wild ride in the whistle.
When indiscreet indoors changes.
Hello and welcome to Miles from Main Street, your Far From Disney podcast. My name is Mykhailo.
And I'm Bryan.
And we're here to talk about Disney World.
But especially coping away from Disney.
Which we know a lot about being from the Midwest. Today we're looking at Epcot, my favorite park. We'll be covering some planning tips, reviews, current events, coping strategies, and even a little history while we're at it. So first, planning tips. Bryan, what do you got for hitting those Disney festivals at Epcot?
Yeah, so these festivals have a lot of food, and we're going to need to spend a lot of money on this food. So the best thing for you to do is get a gift card. They have special gift cards you can pick up. We got one that had a little wristband and it hung right off your wrist. So you were able to go and just walk up and be like, yeah, I want 2 of this, 3 of that. Swipe the gift card. You know, you got to think about what you're doing when you only have so much money on that gift card.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's gone, it's gone.
Do the gift cards work the same way as Magic Bands, where it's got RFID, or is it still swipe?
It's still a swipe.
Okay.
Actually, I don't remember. I think it is a swipe.
Yeah, because that's pretty cool. That it can almost be like, because people always pay for stuff with Magic Bands, and so it's almost as if, again, you don't have to pull out your credit card to pay for this stuff, and that's a lot safer because that way you've got your set amount of money that you're going to be spending at Disney. You don't have to dig into all of this other stuff.
Yeah, the gift card was really good for us. I had my kids along, and I had to worry about how much we're going to be spending on the food, and we still had our own, food budget from outside of using the festival food.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to split that apart and know that I'm okay on this end, I'm okay on that end, and you don't have to think about it. You just have a good time. So yeah, definitely go for gift cards. And what's really cool is some of these gift cards now, they'll add like little souvenirs as part of it. So like the Flower and Garden one, they had a seed packet that was like a little card hanging right next to the gift card. So you could pull that off when you got home and plant it and grow a
Cool.
plant. Yeah,
very cool. Yeah, I have never been to one of these festivals, and I feel terrible. I think I've been. I kind of like hit the middle of I think it was the art festival and Flower and Garden, but every single time I've gone, it's either been in the summer or most recently I went right before Thanksgiving. I was actually there on Thanksgiving, so I've just never really been able to go and give it my all at any of these festivals. Which is kind of sad because it seems like people really enjoy them, and it's really cool to see all of these new booths come out with all of these new food treats that people love. So yeah, I that's definitely on my bucket list of things that I want to be able to do and I feel like it's one of those things that Disney's kind of put together to spice things up, because Disney still has a big cult following of annual pass holders. And that's definitely one big thing that annual pass holders like to do, is hit up these festivals, because it's something new happening at Epcot for these people who go so often.
right. And, if I could give you another tip, we've tried to do it as our full day of Epcot. On our last trip, we spent a little bit of time in Future World to hit some of those favorite rides that we enjoy, but then spend as much time on the festival as we could. And we had our kids in tow, and it got to be really tough to get to all of the spots that we wanted to try food and still enjoy visiting all the countries that World Showcase presents to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it may, and I haven't had the opportunity to do it, but it may actually be better if you can go. I've seen a lot of couples will go for the evening and just kind of walk around the showcase, try the different foods. That's their dinner, that's their date night, whatever. So it might work better to do something like that instead of trying to fit it in as a whole day.
Mm-hmm.
I know they do offer a after 4 pass,
Mm-hmm.
annual pass, I believe. So there's, a lot of people are just looking to do that too. We just
Yeah.
get in, enjoy some food and get out.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've always thought, is that if I was to go to one of these festivals, I would want to dedicate my entire day to that festival, especially with all these food booths, because I'm a foodie 100%. I love sitting down and trying to figure out where I'm going to eat everywhere at every single park, all the way down to like lunch one place, dinner one place. Um, I'm sure you're the same, Brian. But yeah, I've never been able to do that, and I feel like I would want to spend my whole day dedicated to those festivals. So
Yeah, well, and I think we're going to be a little festival heavy on this podcast, but it's a big thing that's going on with Epcot right now. It's kind of what's drawing people in with all the construction going on, so it's hard to ignore it.
oh yeah.
Getting into our reviewing section, uh, we recently were there for the Flower and Garden Festival, as I mentioned before,
Mm-hmm.
and so we got to try a few different things. I don't remember everything right off the top of my head, but a couple of things that stand out was I've heard from many people about the frushi, and this is a fruit sushi. Um, and it was interesting. It's rice and it's more of a sweet, not a savory type of flavor. It's got fruit in it instead of fish. I didn't care for it, and it was
Mm-hmm.
mostly the rice that did it for me. It was
Mm.
too odd of a combination for me, but many people just love it.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing we had to go back and get seconds of was the violet lemonade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of this or had this,
Oh
but
yes, I've definitely heard of the violet lemonade.
it's amazing. It's a frozen purple drink. They may serve it with like a rum. We did not get it that way. We got it just straight up violet
Mm-hmm.
lemonade. We bought 2 of them right away, passed it around within the family to give tastes. It was hard for me to get a second taste of it because it was going so fast from
Mm-hmm.
with everyone else. So yeah, we had to make a second trip back to get more of it. So
Nice,
that's
yeah.
that's really good stuff.
Yeah, and that's kind of what these festivals are all about. Everything is not necessarily bite size, but they're not meal size. So you're able to kind of like go through and pick out. You could literally have one of not everything, but one little bite at each area, and that would be your entire meal basically. A little bit more than a meal, but that you could totally use that as your dinner. One of the themes of this podcast is coping, and since I've never actually been able to be at one of these festivals, I do a lot of watching people online go to these festivals, people who do vlogs of these festivals. It's actually very cool to watch them, and people will do reviews, kind of the same thing we're talking about here, where they'll go through and they'll try everything and let you know what it tastes like. And that's kind of why I've heard of violet lemonade, and the frushi and stuff like that, because I've watched these people online go to these festivals, and it honestly makes me want to go more. Just seeing these people enjoy all of this amazing food at these festivals just looks great. So that's another. We're not even there yet. We're not even to our coping section, but that's one big thing for me, is kind of watching these vlogs and watching people. It's like watching something that you'd want to do and that you want to do when you get to the parks. And that's
Yeah, and the festivals aren't all food. They do have
Mhm.
other components to it. Flower and Garden has the topiaries. They have a bee. I can't remember the bee's name. Spike the bee. They have a little height. They have a scavenger hunt for Spike the bee out there. So in every country, there's going to be a bee hidden. And
Mhm.
it's a big bee. It's easy to find. They just have it hidden in different areas.
Mhm.
They do many different things on gardening. They do many different things on how to bring birds and butterflies in. They have a butterfly garden. So there is more to it. You got to remember, Epcot is all about learning. So they're finding ways for you to learn, or edutainment, as they like to call it.
Edutainment,
There
yes.
you go.
Cool. So, going along with that, some current events for you guys. We're going to talk about the current festival and the addition of the new old spires at the entrance of Epcot.
Yeah, they're redoing the entrance to Epcot. And so if you go in that way right now, it's mostly construction walls. But recently they were able to get the spires that are part of the waterfall or water fountain display that's going to be in the entrance. They got them put back up now, and they look amazing. And one of the Imagineers put out video showing them putting them back up, and a lot of the vloggers that have been there to see it just talk about how beautiful they look. So I'm very excited to go see those, and I'm very excited to see all the work when it's done.
Oh, definitely. And it looks so cool. It's totally on point with what Epcot is, and like that kind of like feeling of the park, the futuristic feeling and everything. And I loved, and I think it's still the Epcot logo. Um, it's all of those different circles all put together. That logo's like right in the middle of those spires, and it's so cool. I have many ideas of Disney tattoos. That's one of them. But yeah, I love that logo. That logo is so cool, and these spires look so, it's just like so perfectly futuristic. So next, while we're at it, we'll hit a little bit of history. Brian, our resident history buff, has a little bit of history for you guys.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm sure a lot of you listeners have a lot of knowledge on what has happened throughout history for Disney, but I wanted to hit up what's going on with Epcot. When Walt first designed Epcot and brought Epcot up to the world, he said it was going to be the experimental prototype city of tomorrow. And he wanted to tackle the subject of urban planning. He was going to be that ultimate urban planner. He was going to bring together as many companies and all of their cutting edge innovations into that city immediately. He wanted to have monorails. He wanted to have the People Mover, or Tomorrowland Transit Authority. He wanted to have all of that incorporated into Epcot. The one thing that he really wanted to do was, you would only be able to live there for 9 months, and then you would have to move on. And that's where the company got tripped up after he passed away. And I have always said this: had he lived, I would have loved to have seen what he was going to do with it. Because the one thing about Walt Disney was that he didn't take no for an answer. No matter how big his idea was, he was going to do it, and he was going to get it done correctly and in an amazing way. You think back to Snow White, that was Walt's folly. He made enough money to be able to move the studio and continue moving on. I really think he would have gotten the citizenship piece figured out. So all of that being kind of the groundwork for Epcot. After he passed and they started finally tackling the idea of what are we going to do with Epcot? How are we going to build this? It really has become a city, but Walt Disney World itself has become the city, not just the park. The park is where the innovation has come in. And I think if we look at Future World, a lot of that has eroded, and that's why we're seeing so much construction now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. And there's so much in there that you said that I agree with so well and so much. And it's just nail head, like some of the things that you said about Walt and just not taking no for an answer and just persevering and just getting his ideas built and have them come to fruition. He was an innovator, and that's totally true about the Disney World itself. Just the way everything is put together and the way the urban planning of Disney World is just amazing.
Yeah, they really went all out with, and kind of out of necessity as well. They really had to pull together the system that they have, and that's kind of where I look to when people talk about Epcot. It's more the broader Disney World, not just the park. But man, I wish he could have completed it because I would have loved to have seen what it would have been.
Oh, definitely. So there's one thing I do want to bring up, and that's the debate whether or not it's experimental prototype city of tomorrow or experimental prototype community of tomorrow. I've heard it two different ways.
So I recently saw his video from the Disneyland TV series when he first brings it up, and I always have said community, but recently I saw the original video and he says city.
Very
So
cool. Yeah,
he may have changed it along the way, but that original recording was him saying city.
Yeah. I've definitely heard it both ways, and so I've just I think community was the one that I always thought was like the original way, but I've definitely heard it both ways. So that's cool. That's a cool little knowledge nugget.
And if you want to see the original, or at least part of the original model for Epcot, take a ride on the People Mover when it's up and running again, and you'll be able to see it along the way.
Oh yeah, love that people mover. So moving on to our next section, coping. A lot of Epcot is food, and something that I enjoy doing, and I'm sure Brian you enjoy doing too, is actually replicating Disney food at home. Um, I've done a few things. I do more of the Star Wars Land stuff. So I've done a Ronto wrap before, and I've done cheeseburger pots before. But Brian, you've come across these recipes that Disney has been posting online. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, ever since they had to close for this pandemic, they have been putting a lot of content out, but they were putting a lot of recipes out, like actual recipes from their restaurants. So they put out a Mickey pretzel, and what floored everybody was that the main ingredient is store-bought pizza dough. And so we had to go out and buy the ingredients and figure out how we do this. So it tasted great. The problem is I got to find that cheese. The cheese dip is what does it, that they sell there. And it's, coincidentally, it comes from Green Bay, right where I'm living.
Of course.
I know the company that sells it. I have to figure out how to get it because they're a wholesaler. They're not a retailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that cheese that is, that's what I need now because the pretzel tasted like the pretzel. Uh, my cooking at home started with Mickey waffles. I had to try to make Mickey waffles for the family, and we actually have them quite a bit. My recipe has been tweaked here and there to try to get closer to how they do it. There was a guy that had like every recipe, and I don't know if he had been a chef with Disney at one time, but he had every recipe out on his website. So I started using his recipe first. And for Mickey waffles, the big thing you need is you need to get Carbon's golden malted waffle flour mix. That's the same stuff they use in the hotels if you have a continental breakfast. That's what they use. But Disney's doctoring it somehow. It's just not the same, like off the package thing. So I've been messing around with that, trying to get to the right thing. And they've just recently, for the 90th of Mickey, they put out a waffle iron that makes them the perfect mini size waffles that you get in Walt Disney World. So yeah, so that has been my labor of love when it comes to eating at home. But yeah, I've got a whole folder in my cloud that has all of these recipes they put out. Some of them are churro bites, the kitchen sink from Beaches and Cream. If you really wanted to put all of that together, you can now do that. The one that I really have wanted to try that I haven't had the chance to do yet is Le Cellier's Canadian cheddar cheese soup.
Yeah.
And looking at the recipe, it looks like you make quite a large vat of soup. So that's why I haven't done it yet. But
yeah, and I have wanted to. I actually have a smoker. I have a grill that has a smoker in it, and I've been really trying to find places that actually sell turkey legs so that I can make some Disney smoked turkey legs, because that would be amazing. I love those. I have a buddy who went to Disney, and the thing he couldn't stop talking about was the turkey leg, and the fact that he was able to ride Dumbo with his turkey leg in his hand, eating his turkey leg on Dumbo. He just loved it. So a turkey leg is definitely another thing that I want to make. When I made my cheeseburger pods and my Ronto wrap, first of all, cheeseburger pods, so good. Oh my God. And I've heard before people say that they taste like McDonald's cheeseburgers. Can confirm, tastes like McDonald's cheeseburgers. It's so I kind of figured out why, and it's actually the mustard in there with the meat. I don't know why that's what does it for me, but that's kind of what makes it taste like those cheeseburgers from McDonald's. But it's really hard to make those bao buns. I've actually made cheeseburger pods twice. And the meat and the innards and everything tasted exactly like the cheeseburger pod, but those bao buns are so difficult to make. And so you gotta steam them, and you first of all you have to make the dough correctly. And I'm not a good bread maker. I'm so bad at making bread. But yeah, it's so cool to kind of like go online, and there's videos everywhere of people making them. I think the one we talk about them all the time, and it's kind of coming back. Tim Tracker did one, and that was kind of the video that I followed on how to make them, and it's super close. And then the Ronto wrap that one's kind of difficult because you have to make pork, and you also need like I think when I watched it, it was like pork and a hot dog and stuff like that. So it's kind of like things that were close to a Ronto wrap, but wasn't really a Ronto wrap. But that's, I mean, if you can make it and you can feel like you're at Disney, go for it, because that's what we want, and that's kind of what I was going for. So I was able to make cheeseburger pods and Ronto wraps, and I felt like I was at Pandora and I was at Star Wars Land, and it was great. It was a fun time.
yeah, that food at Satuli Canteen is really good. And you kept talking about those cheeseburger pods, and I'm going, I know I tasted it, but I had my wife and I split one of those build your own bowls there, and it was like,
yeah.
oh my God, but those are good too. So, yeah, making food at home has been one of the ways that we really, as a family, been coping. because we can work together with it. One other thing that I did was we got up one morning, and instead of just making the regular Mickey waffles like I'll do, I got the regular waffle iron out, and I made big waffles, and I filled it with Nutella and blueberries and strawberries because we had them all. We just had everything we needed, and I made that instead. Those Nutella, I don't know if anyone's had those waffle sandwiches from Sleepy Hollow, but I did a pretty darn good job of that. Yeah. So that was a meal one day, and nice surprise for everyone because we really like going to get those there at Sleepy Hollow.
I've only ever honestly made one or two big Disney meals. I have aspires to make an entire Disney like a bunch of courses for I aspire to make a 9-course Disney meal one day with the gray stuff and everything. But that's on the bucket list, and I'll have to do that soon and let you know how it goes.
It's interesting you say that 9-course. It makes me kind of think of Victoria and Albert's, and they just released the Victoria and Albert's cheesecake recipe, and I of course put it into my folder for later. But I looked at my wife and I told her, I said, they just released this, and I know that if I make it, it's going to taste just like it would at Victoria and Albert's.
Awesome.
Which I know it won't, but I can pretend like it does. I've never been there, so I wouldn't know the difference.
Well, we kind of found a pretty decent theme with this episode. Food. We like to talk about food. and honestly, that's kind of bringing it all together with coping. I love watching dining reviews. I love watching videos of people talking about how to make this Disney food. And it's just a good way of coping, and it's a good way of not only feeling like you're there, but also making plans for what food you want to be eating at the parks and what different restaurants you want to go to, and what's getting you excited about going back to Disney. So I hope you enjoyed our trip around Epcot. Remember to get that gift card when perusing a festival.
Our discussion of Flower and Garden was not a complete review, so we encourage you to get out to a festival and try something new.
Also, be sure to check out those new spires on your way in.
We'd love to have you join us on Facebook and let us know what you've been making at home.
Even some pictures in the comments would be great. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please rate us on iTunes and subscribe. Email us at milesfrommainstreetpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, and visit us on Facebook under Miles from Main Street. We'll be bringing more to you weekly and look forward to talking to you then.
Until next week, remember,
some live close,
but most of us don't.
So let's talk about it.